Hey, what's up everybody? It is time for a very sadly rare after theater review. I really should do more of these. I'm so sorry, guys. Before I jump into this review, I do want to give a special shout out. Thank you to my Muddy Cult patrons. Thank you for being rock stars. Thank you so much. If you want to become a Muddy Cult patron, the link is in the description below. I do early access on my videos and stuff that's going to be posted on the blog and the channel, and I also give y'all opportunities to request stuff for me to review, topics for me to talk about, things to be streamed on the Discord, as well as other little perks that are provided on Patreon. But if you don't want to support me monetarily, you can just do the bare minimum of hitting that subscribe button, because I know so many of you watch my stuff, peep in, get out, but don't want to commit. You should totally commit, hit that subscribe button, because I post stuff on Wednesdays or Thursdays, and sometimes I add an extra video, and you'll never know when I post if you're not subscribed. So, I had the pleasure of checking out George Michael's final work before he passed away, called Freedom, the director's cut. This was a special event that was shown at Cinemark, and I did do a car vlog of it, which is another little perk that I post on Patreon, where I go to the movies, and then after the movie's over, I give my short little first impression thoughts of said movie, because I go to the theater quite often. And I wanted to check this out because I enjoy George Michael's music. I'm not a huge fan or anything, but I do like his stuff, and I wanted to learn more about him, and I did not know that this was something that he personally made. And I feel like that's very different compared to somebody else making a biography about someone, or having some Hollywood version biopic of a deceased person. And there's nothing wrong with that, with those things. I do enjoy those as well. But I thought this was just very cool and special, and I feel like I was probably the youngest person in the theater. But let's get into what this documentary biography movie is about. George Michael Freedom, the director's cut, is a deeply autobiographical story of George Michael's life, concentrating on the period around the making of his album Listen Without Prejudice, and detailing his love, his loss, his court case with his record company, and his struggle with fame. It is a poignant and intimate portrait of a music icon, narrated and co-directed by George Michael himself just before his death. So apparently when I was logging this movie in, there are other versions of this movie. There's the regular version, I guess, that came out years before. I think it was 1999 or something. And then there is an uncut version. And then there's the version that I saw, which was the director's cut. I don't know what the difference is between these three versions. I just know I saw the director's cut version, which I'm glad is the version that they showed in the theater, because director's cuts are always nice to see what the director or directors had initially in mind. So when I saw it in the theater, the first thing that they showed was a very high definition version of Freedom, the song, in case you're not familiar with his work, which recently, when I did see that, when I saw the movie, I was watching Vice's show called The Dark Side of the 90s, which is an incredible show. It's about to wrap up its second season as I'm filming this, and if you haven't checked it out, you totally should, especially if you grew up in the 90s or, you were around. But it's also good if you just want to know more about how stuff started and has affected pop culture here in America currently, because they do tie those things together always at the end, always to current, such as the Y2K and the rise of Rush Limbaugh and all that other good stuff. So there was an episode about supermodels and how they became into prominence, and they mentioned George Michael's Freedom, which helped bring the whole supermodel culture and lexicon or whatever into the world, because it did feature like Naomi Campbell and I think Cindy Crawford. I could be wrong. I know Linda Evangelista is in it, but it brought a lot of the popular models into the music video. And so they showed the music video beforehand very high def. Later they did show some like behind the scenes making and the struggles, and they did feature, I believe, most if not all the models that were featured in that music video to talk about working with him, working with George Michael, and the process and the struggle. Like the scene with, I believe it was Cindy Crawford, I'm gonna definitely put a correction if I'm wrong, her being in the bathtub and that she didn't have like any like bubbles or anything to like hide herself, so they had to strategically place the camera in certain ways so it wouldn't expose her and stuff, and she was like very cold and all this other stuff. It was really fascinating. One of the things, of many things that make this documentary unique and enjoyable, was having all of these legendary iconic names talk about and explain the phenomenon and popularity of George Michael and his impact on the industry, such as Stevie Wonder and Mark Ronson and I forgot his first name, Clive Davis, the label person, him, and Liam Gallagher and Mary J. Blige. There's a whole lot of like big names that spoke about like his whole journey, while also having narration and footage and stuff that George Michael put together, because of course, like I said, he co-directed this. So it was good. It was nice to see that whole journey without it being filtered or censored or edited or hyperbolized in an exploitative way as far as any like dramatic or controversial moments like a lot of biopics do or a lot of documentaries do. Because I mean, sure, people like to hear the scandal and the controversy and stuff, but I like how authentic and real and true this documentary was. So it started from his beginning as him as a child and him becoming half of, I guess, the popular duo. I mean, I know it was like a whole group, Wham, and how they were popular, and I liked how Naomi Campbell was saying, oh, we used to throw stuff at the Wham fans because I was a Culture Club kid and stuff. But it was just interesting hearing and watching that whole journey of how he transitioned from being part of a popular group, Wham, and then becoming a solo artist, and then seeing him reach this massive popularity that he didn't think he would ever receive, and then dealing with fame, and then battling with his label because he wanted to work at his own pace, he wanted to take time for himself, he wanted to deal with personal matters, and he just couldn't cope with the fame, and he went to other alternatives to, I don't know, numb the negativity that he felt, which is a common trapping for a lot of creatives in the industry. They tend to delve into alcoholism and drugs and the sex and all of that. And some of those artists, unfortunately, that takes them down, that sometimes it shortens their journey. But fortunately, George Michael was able to overcome that, although he was very transparent with his struggles with those sorts of things, because he had to deal with a lot of other stuff, but they wouldn't give him the time to deal with his own personal problems. They really wanted him to make more music. They really wanted him to change his image or stick to a certain brand or image. They didn't want him to experiment and, do something that he would genuinely enjoy and be proud of. And as a creative, and I'm sure other creatives out there watching this, it's very important to have control over what you make, and that you are authentically yourself, and that you put all of yourself in there, and that you don't have any outside people or companies controlling and telling you, no, this is you, I know who you are, you don't know who you are, and they make you doubt yourself, and then you end up doing other stuff to like cope with those feelings, those negative feelings, in unhealthy ways. So it was great to see that journey of his musical career, going from Wham to the solo to exploring the world and spreading his music and transitioning to other genres, and hearing about his influences and how it really transcended just the pop genre, because apparently he was very popular in the black community because he had a very soulful R&B foundation in his vocal delivery, which is something I never really thought of consciously. And there was apparently some backlash, and the black community the black community was upset that he won awards for being the best R&B artist, but apparently he was taking away awards from black talent that get overshadowed. It's kind of that weird argument of not quite cultural appropriation, but something similar to it, where it's just well, of course this is going to be popular, even though this was originally from the black community, but some white guys doing it, and so of course he's going to get all the awards and recognition instead of these black creatives that started it and are just as good, if not better. And he felt guilty, and he didn't want to take away from that. He wanted to give them credit, and he even collaborated with some of these iconic, legendary voices in the black community, such as Mary J. Blige and Stevie Wonder, as well as other black creatives. So I found that fascinating, that there was this backlash that happened, and I probably was ignorant too, because I was a kid back then, and I didn't really, pay attention to awards and stuff like that, or maybe I wasn't around for it. I don't really remember the year of when he got this award, but I just found that really fascinating. But I was happy that he was able to take time to himself, and he was very stern about, I want to be, genuine to myself. I want to put something authentic. I want to put out something that I'm proud of, and I'm not going to listen or bend to what the company has to tell me. And he was able to go out and find love, and it was very heartbreaking but heartwarming at the same time to see his journey with his partner and how that went, and also hearing about how close he was with his mother, because I know back then it was a struggle, I'm sure, for people who are in the LGBT community to be accepted by their parents. I know it's still, unfortunately, a problem to present day, but it definitely was a whole Pandora's box back then. There was a lot of negative stigmas attached to it, especially when it comes to HIV and AIDS, which is sadly part of George Michael's story. And they also, of course, included him in his lawsuit with his company, and that he wanted his rights, he wanted his time, he wanted that self-care, and he was able to bounce back for the most part, maybe not in the way that he wanted to, but, or the way, the label thought, planned for him, but he was able to be happy with what he was creating. He was able to experiment like he wanted to because he didn't want to just stick to that sound from his big hit. He just wanted to explore other things and evolve. And I feel like that was the best route for him, because when they got to more like the late 90s and the 2000s and stuff, he really tried to fit himself in the mold of what was trending then, but still keep to his foundation and core of who he is from his beginning, but also show how much he had matured. There was also a bit of an ad for one of the albums that it came out decades ago, but I think the whole like promotion was because they were re-releasing it and issuing it as a vinyl, a special like anniversary version, which is pretty cool. And he touched a little bit on that before the movie started, and also it is mentioned in the documentary as one of his proudest works. So I want to check it out, and I definitely want to listen to more of George Michael's music because, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of his, but I do like some of his songs, and it just made me want to explore more of his work because of how he and the other people who spoke about him explained the songs and how it made them feel and the thought process and everything in some of those tracks. Like, one of the artists, I believe it was Mary J. Blige, and another artist mentioned something that I have explained or expressed to family and friends about certain artists that I like, about being able to feel the music. It's beyond, just hearing something. It's beyond just listening to something. Feeling it is much deeper, and that's when they were mentioning how like soulful and authentic his voice and message and words were, and that it really told his story and struggle, and that you can feel a lot of his pain and how unhappy he was, and just everything that he was feeling then. So I would love to like go back and like listen to those things. And I think he had like also like a gospel album as well, if I remember correctly. But overall, it was just a fantastic experience to have in the cinema among George Michael fans, because clearly, like I said, I'm sure I was the youngest person in the theater, but I was among people who watched this whole journey in real time. And I'm sure they were just reliving and reminiscing and having that lovely nostalgic feeling watching this whole journey and being like, oh, I remember that, oh, I remember that. And I think that's just fantastic. I mean, I've had those moments myself when I watch artists that I grew up with as a kid and being like, oh yeah, I remember when that happened, I remember when this happened. So to enter their world, which I think a lot of younger people and people my age should do, which is go back, look at these iconic people and understand why they're legendary, why they were important to the music history, and how they influenced those artists that we enjoy now. Just keep an open mind. Don't dismiss it and say, oh, well, that's old-timey, I don't want to listen to it, it just doesn't appeal to me. Open your ears, open your mind, and enjoy these legendary artists. Overall, this was a fantastic documentary, like I said, and it was just great to see one of George Michael's final works, and they really emphasized that. And I wish he had, not that his ending was terrible, but I wish he had like a better ending. But I feel like he had a good ending, or a great ending. I think he went out on a good note. I just wish he was able to, keep going, keep building on, because I feel like he had so much more to offer to the world. But I feel like I don't think his legacy will die anytime soon. because, as I said, I'm curious into dipping back into his catalog and listening to it with new ears. But I am glad that he also set a precedent for other artists who want to take time to themselves, to self-care, and to be able to grieve, be able to spend time with their loved ones who are not feeling well, or just to grapple with their own personal problems and not let, labels overtake them. I know it's still a problem, but I'm glad that he set a precedent to not be afraid to fight back. Because every creative should be able to do what they do. Be creative. So I don't give this rating out very often, but this is what I put on Letterboxd and I stand by it, and I would love to watch this movie again. I did give this a 5 out of 5. It was just such a fantastic piece of work, and it just really took my breath away. And every time they played his music, I definitely could feel every bit of emotion he put into every track, and it also helps with, the whole surround sound experience. But I would just love to rewatch it again and just share that with other people, because I feel like this is a documentary worth sharing whether you're a fan of George Michael or not. It's definitely an important piece of history that I feel like should be watched and shared and discussed, and maybe, marinate on it and take inspiration from, because he was a very inspirational person. So that's my review. Hopefully it wasn't too rambly, but I just really love this documentary. It was very fantastic. And if you have seen it, if you were lucky to go see it in theaters, because I know it wasn't in theaters for very long, and I don't think it had like a wide release. I believe it was very limited. Please leave your comments below. Also, if you want, you can leave your favorite George Michael song in the comments as well. It could be his solo stuff, his Wham stuff, anything collaborative. Go for it. One of my favorites, one of my go-tos, when I found out that he passed away, the first song that I put on was Careless Whisper. It's one of my favorite songs. It's just a fantastic piece of work. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and of course, if you like this video, give it a little thumbs up thingy. It looks like that. Give it a nice thumbs up. Sorry, I'm a little double jointed thumb. Give it a thumbs up, yes. And hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. I'll see you guys in another video. Peace!